Yoshikawa, and I'm here to discuss Sunny Studios' Spring 2021 collection. Up first, we have our new Captivating Camellias flowers here, and it includes 4 layers with 2 separate blossoms, a little ladybug, and a leaf. And so each of the blossoms have 4 layers there, and there's also a Happy Mother's Day set or sentiment sort of squeezed in there. And so for my first card, I have a sympathy card using the stamps and dies, as well as our new Inside Greetings sympathy stamps. Here's a look at them. This comes with a lot of greetings to try to comfort people in the cards. I don't know about you, but I never know what to say for those types of cards, so I thought I would do some searching and find some good sentiments to include in the stamps for the insides of cards. And I used our wood grain embossing folder there with some of those little mirror droplets. And then our rickrack border die, as well as our background basics for my polka dot there. And then I used our new stitch circle dies there for my frame, and I'll show those a little later in this video. This is another sympathy card. This time I used our botanical backdrop dies there for the background, and another sentiment greeting from our Inside Greetings sympathy stamps. This one comes with a couple different ways you can write with deepest sympathy or with sincere sympathy, and then there's like thinking of you and praying for you that can be combined with some of these other phrases. So like I said, I used the botanical backdrop for my background, and then for the inside frame I used our fancy frame rectangles, and I used some Gina K ink there for, and some of our iridescent pastel confetti for the accents. And I spritzed on some watered down darker ink there to give it the speckled look. For this card, I cut several black cardstock strips that were 4 inches by 3/4 inches, and I just used a piece of scratch cardstock to kind of space them out. That Hello Word die there is from our Slimline scallop frame dies. It's just a really basic die there. I used some metallic cardstock. It's kind of trying to catch the light there, but it just adds a really elegant look to it. For this card, I used a greeting from our birthday, Inside Greeting birthday stamps, and as well as our slimline die that I was showing there that I cut down. Here's a look at those Inside Greeting birthday stamps. This just has a lot of good greetings that aren't limited to just birthday. For example, this greeting could be used for other big day occasions, and there's a lot that are just really encouraging sentiments. And for these flowers here, I just trimmed them off the edge where they went off the edge, and then I stamped them using the MISTI to lined up the stamps, one of the layers of the stamps with my MISTI, so that I could create the look as if it were going off the edge with that black and white look. And then I just used a little bit of foam tape there to pop it up and create a little more dramatic effect. For this card, I used our Frilly Frames Eyelet Lace dies together with some pink cardstock behind to make it stand out a little bit more. And then for the pattern paper there, I used our, what did I use? Our classic gingham paper, and then our new basket stamps called Layered Basket, as well as the birthday phrase from our blooming petal dies. Blooming Petal Frames, I believe it's called, sorry. And Happy Thought stamps. And I actually completed the inside of this card so I could use one of the great new phrases from the stamp set. A lot of cards I send, I actually don't give them in person, so there's this great sentiment that says, even though we can't be together. And then up next is a really clean and simple version of similar elements as the first card, just a lot more clean and simple. I used craft paper there with the layered basket and our new Slimline frames, Slimline Pin Its, and a sentiment there from our new Eggs to Die For, which is coming up. So our Eggs to Die For set features a couple different sentiments that mix and match. It's like, may your basket be filled with peace, joy, and happiness, or you can say basket full of wishes or basket full of love. So there's a couple different ways you can phrase them. And the set features a solid egg and an outlined egg that pairs with the little chick and the bunny ears. And there's little feet for the chick. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dies or coordinating patterns for the eggs that you can layer. So it's a 2 layer system. So for this first card, I used the little bunnies. I think they look so cute. They're little chubby bunnies. Almost remind me of Peeps when they're in the pink. But I stamped the eyes in a separate color. I'll explain that more on our blog, which I will link here. And then I used our little pennant, Slimline Pin Its, and I created unique pattern paper using our background basic stamps, which I also used for the grass, and cut the grass there with our Sunny Sentiments dies. And the outside edge for the sky I cut with our retro petal frilly frames. And added a little stitched edge with our Slimline basic border dies and a sentiment from A Good Egg. For this card, I cut the outside mat using our frilly frames, I believe it was hexagon dies, and use that same Sunny Sentiments for the grass, and I just trimmed the edges with my scissors. And for the spring word, I used our new layered basket dies. There's a little bonus word in there, and the happy comes from our cheerful daisies. And I'll show you those more in the future. And then I just inked behind them with a little tumble glass distress ink and my favorite foam dauber to make those eggs stand out. For this card, it has a little bit of a sparkle. It's hard to pick up on the camera, but I used some specialty embossing powders. I used some that had a little pearlescent look to them and some that were glittery. Those use the same frilly frame hexagon dies for my mat. And then for my sentiment, I used the new Slimline Pin Its, which I cut with the little pennant on both sides by flipping it over. And then I used the Happy Easter Wishes from our Happy Thoughts stamps. And then I put everything up with foam tape to give it a really, this is actually a really sturdy card because I went crazy with the foam tape. But for this card, I'm featuring the little chicks version of the bunnies. So you got the bunnies and now they have the chicks. And once again, I inked up the eyes with some Versa Fine by keeping the chick in place in my Misty. And for the pennants there, I used our Slimline pennants along with the fishtail banner dies that match. And for my greeting, I also used the little stitching from our Slimline border dies right there in between because I needed to trim some of them skinnier. And then for my sentiments, I used the Happy Easter from one chick to another from our Chicky Baby stamps. For this card, I created the eggs and I added, made them even look more three-dimensional than they already do by adding some shading with a little finger foam dauber. Here, I'll grab it and show you what I'm talking about. But while my images and eggs were like before I die cut them while they were in my Misty, I just left them in place and I stamped them again with the darker color that I used for the accent pattern. And while they were in place, I applied that to the solid portion of the egg. So I'll just kind of illustrate here, but I would attach it to I would daub on the ink on the outside edge, stamp it and daub it and stamp it and daub it until I had it dark enough to show. But it really just takes them up another level. And for the outside frame there, I used our two new of our circle scallop mats. I think I number 1 and number 3. And then I added some vellum in between, behind them. I had cut out the center there with a word die, and I used our color word die and our Color Me Happy stamps, as well as our fancy frame rectangle dies for that little pin it there, with some paper from our classic gingham pastel paper. Sorry, not classic, just gingham pastel paper. And here's a card showing our layered basket dies, which I'll be showing more of here in a second. But I used a circle from our new stitched circle dies that come in large and small. I'll show you those more a little bit later too. But these eggs I also had shaded with that extra layer using that foam dauber. And I have some paper here from our Spring Fling paper pack. Up next, we have a new stamp set called Layered Basket. It comes with 4 separate layers to create a basket perfect for our Easter eggs or flowers or fruit or endless options. It comes with these 4 separate layers, a solid layer, a little ladybug, a little trail, and then the matching dies come with a bonus spring word die like I showed here on this last card. And the solid stamp can actually be used for a mirror, so it kind of has a multi-purpose for a stamping mirror. For this one, I combined it with our Berry Bliss stamps, heating, embossing those little seeds to make it really look realistic. And then for the gingham, I used our background basic stamps together with the little scalloped edge and stitching from our Slimline basic border dies. And then for our sentiment, I used the Thank You Very Much from our Fresh and Fruity stamps. And then next here we have a basket. So here's 4 different ways I used that basket, 4 different colors and ways I used it. And just showing you some of the ones I stamped out. I think there's maybe a color or 2 I didn't get to use on a card. I was experimenting with slightly different ink colors. I'm trying to do sort of a whitewash and then try some lighter and darker tans. I actually had wanted to use this a lot more than I got around to, but I think it's a really good versatile stamp set for so many flowers. And I just wanted to kind of show you some of my eggs here. They look so pretty when they're done up. I have a tendency when we get a new layering set to just mass produce a lot all at once while I have all of the positions set in my MISTI. And here's the little bunnies with the ears. So I show you here how I tried stamping the whole face with black and doing just the eyes, and I decided I like just the eyes better. So yeah, just a few examples. This is on that one card I used a little polka dotted chick, which is sort of really hard to see here, but you can see it in person. And then here's an example of all of my captivating camellia flowers. I keep little post-it notes on the back of one of each flower so I remember the ink color combinations I used. This is the pot from our potted rose stamps, but I just thought it would look really cool paired with those. I never got around to assembling a card. I just ran out of time, but yeah, so many options. I usually stamp my leaves in a bunch of different colors as well, so I have different combinations and choices. I think half the battle is honestly just setting up the layer perfect, so when I have it in my MISTI, I like to just spend like a few hours and stamp a bunch all at once. So up next is our new stamp set called Garden Fairy. It comes with 4 little fairies, one sitting on the daisy there, and then 3 that are kind of flying midair or standing. A little snail, a wand, 3 different butterflies, a lantern, and then this little toadstool house. as well as 2 bluebell flowers. And there's 3 punny greetings, hoping your birthday is magical, or hoping your day is magical, and then thank you very much, and then sweet wishes. Oh, and there's these little kind of sparkly stars, kind of like pixie dust, fairy dust. For this first card, I combined it with our country scene border there in the background, and then I used our Slimline nature border dies there for the front hill, and pop some of them up with foam tape to create a little dimension, so the bluebells on the back are not popped up, so it just gives a little extra. And then for this one, I created a background. I believe I created this background with someone else's product several years ago, but you could also create it using a mask with our Slimline nature border dies. And then I added a little stitching there and a little rickrack edge with our Slimline basic borders. And then for my inks, I used pick raspberry, carved pumpkin, mustard seed, twisted citron, and peacock feathers there. And then I used those same colors to stamp the little stars there. So there's the matching coordinating colors from up down below. And then I added a little sparkle with some Ranger Stickles glitter glue to their wings. And for this card, I wanted to focus on the bluebells from the set. I popped up some with foam tape, and I created little layers of grass with our sunny sentiments and flicked on some Copic markers for my grass. And the banner is from our banner basic set with I put the sentiment on a curve. And then the background there was created with our little stitched fluffy cloud dies. There's one that comes with a stitch and one that comes with an individual die cut. So I used the one that's just the stitching. These use a lot of the same elements, but for this one I used the mountain from Country Scenes and the same Slimline nature border dies for the foreground, and the little tiny clouds, sorry, they're from the comic strip everyday dies, and then the fancy frame ovals and the stitched oval dies there for the sentiment. And for the little tufts of grass there, I stamped them from the Country Scenes stamps. They include some little bonus images for that. In this card, using Garden Fairy, I used the little lantern from the set together with our Scenic Route stamps, and I used the foam dauber here to ink up behind each one before I glued them on, before I glued anything on. And then I came through with some blue inks to ink in around them and blend in the sky around them like it's an evening sky. And then for my little fairy dust, I used this Sharpie extra fine point paint pen. This has become my new favorite white pen. And then I heat embossed my sentiment from our Inside Greetings set with white embossing powder, and cut the edge there with our Frilly Frames retro petals dies. And I apologize because I'm going to go off the screen here. I didn't realize I was so far off. But I cut my grass there with our Sunny Sentiments dies, and then the outside edge with our retro petal, excuse me, our fancy frame, no, that's not right either. Sorry, our Slimline Pin It dies. I got my head full of too many names. Anyway, I am going to show more of this card later, and you'll be able to see the full thing on camera. Our next card here shows our birthday balloon stamps. It comes with one big balloon that can be customized, a little house, a sunshine, and then 6 little critters, and then 2 different little banner pennant options to add to the balloon, 2 clouds, 2 little party hats, some 2 little trees, some stars, graduation hat, and 5 sentiments that coordinate. Also, our plain awesome stamps, I didn't get around to it, but they all coordinate pretty well with the sentiments for this. And for this one, I used the barn and farm scene from our Farm Fresh, the car from City Streets, a little of our classic gingham paper there for the bottom, and the outside edge was cut with our Frilly Frames quatrefoil dies. And then I colored my balloon to look sort of patriotic. For this card, I colored my balloon to have polka dots using that same paint pen and add a little graduation cap to my panda. My sentiment there was added to our Banner Basics stamps, and then the outside edge was cut with our new stitch circles, which I used in gray. And then my background there was using our frilly frame stripes dies. I really like the monochromatic, keeping it all hot pink, black, and white. For this one, I used our stitch arch dies for the background, and I wanted to lengthen it, so I just kind of offset the background a little bit. You can't even tell there, but it just stretched that arch die a little bit bigger. And then for the background, I used our subtle gray tones sunburst paper there, and a little high from our Berry Bliss stamps. For this card, I created a little Muppet inspired using that same arch. I created 3 separate strips there, so I could cut the little arch and then layer them over each other, and then trying to show there, and then I just put my little critters in. For this card, I created a slimline card focusing on the little country scene border there with the slimline nature borders and the houses from the stamp set. And then for my sentiment there, I used the Banner Basics and just again curved the sentiment to match that. It's the beauty of clear stamps. And for the background there, I used some of our background basics in the polka dot just to give it a little extra something interesting down there. And I popped some of them up with foam tape just to give it different dimension. So for this one, I colored 2 of those rainbow, and I cut 1 in half, and I was able to give it the optical illusion that I had colored 3. And for my background there, I used our Slimline scallop frame dies, and used the skinny pin it from our new Slimline Pin Its, and a little rainbow stripe paper from our Rainbow Bright paper pack. So next on the list is our new Meow and Forever stamps. This one is has a bunch of punny love themed kitties. There's the newspaper, the box, the little kitties with the tails, and the little yin yang kitties, and a kitty holding an armful of hearts, and the little classic spaghetti scene. And there's so many fun play on words with kitty words. I made sure to include a couple though that could be used for friends too, because not all the cards you make are for your husband. I know they aren't for me. My husband doesn't really care. So I used the polka dot background from our polka dot parade paper pack, and then for the circles I used our new scallop circle mat dies. I think that was from our #1 set. And then for the inside circles, I used our staggered circles. They have a bunch of different small circles, and it just worked out really nicely for that particular size. This is a little set of 4 Valentines I created using the stamps, and I stamped a sentiment inside using our Happy Thoughts stamps. But these were all created using the little, I wanted to point out the little heart. It was a really great way to dress these up without a lot of work, just some red ink and that heart. But these were all created with our Slimline scallop frame, which I folded in half and cut that frame in half and used half on the inside and half on the outside, and then used our new stitch circles to create the repeat circle pattern on the front. And up next is another little card using those same new scallops circle mats, along with the borders from our new Slimline Pin It dies and some pattern paper from the Very Merry paper pack. I love that sentiment, the happy anniversary. And for this one, I also used our Slimline Pin Its there. I inversed them, so you got one going up and one going down. I think these dies would also work great on scrapbook layouts. I just didn't get around to it, but I used the little skinny pennant from the Slimline Pin Its to create my sentiment strips there as well. And these are both using the same scalloped circle matte dies. I'm showing how I use different circles on them for two different looks. The little tiny hearts there are from a couple of our exclusive mini stamp sets we have in our store. I think they're called like mini shape dies or something, but there's several different sizes of hearts. And this is a set of Valentine tags I made that would be perfect to tie to a little gift of food or treats, or even a pencil for a classroom or something. But I used our scalloped tag dies in the square shape and our stitched heart dies there with the Slimline Pin It for my greeting. And these actually went together in just a few hours. I made a bunch of them and it was really fun. Up next, we have a new little 3x4 stamp set. We don't do those as often, but this one just fit perfectly. So it's called My Otter Half. It has a little mom and baby otter. I love that. And then the couple otter holding hands. And there's just a plethora of sentiments. There's the I Otterly Adore You. I had to show you because not all of these sentiments are in the order that they should be. I was just trying to squeeze them on there any way I could. So you have to kind of play switch this, figure out the phrase. But anyway, there's also these three little waves that you can use to create your scenes. And there's a bonus word that says otter, so you can substitute the punny word otter in some of these greetings with the bigger sentiment die. And I added a little, what do they call those jiggler things? Action wobbler, I think. For my card, it can lie flat and then it pops up. And for the background, I used the pond scene and the mountain range from our country scenes, and the dies just cut the top there. I used those little waves for my background. There's the ones that I just showed you in the My Otter Half, but they also come with the country scene set, which I'll be sharing later. And for this card, I die cut a frame using those same stitched heart dies and then some smaller hearts from those mini shape sets I was discussing. And then for my waves, I used our stitched scallop border dies that I just used the other negative space, as well as our banner basics for my sentiment there. I use a no-line coloring set for many of my banners. It's become my favorite way to use them. And this is a new little set called Lovable Llama. It comes with the llama, the party hat, the confetti, the word hello, and then a little stack of 3 presents that he can have on his back, and a bow. The bow can go around his neck, but it was actually designed to perfectly fit on his body to wrap him up sort of like a present. So these are some baby cards I created. I think he works great. He or she works great for babies, boys or girls. For this one, I used our Kinsley alphabet set to spell out the word baby, and then a little heart from our Meow Forever, and I just repeatedly stamped it. It didn't take as long as you would think. I just drew some light pencil sketches. And then these congrat words come from our Slimline scalloped frame dies, and then for the new scallops, I used those scallop circle mats with the new stitch circle dies. And then for the bottom, it really matched well, but it's from the Slimline basic border dies that I used both the stitching and the scallop there. Just kept it really simple since the background already had a lot going on. For this card, I created a birthday card. I repeated the llama 3 times so we can have a party of llamas with the balloons from Floating By. And for this one, I use real like sewing thread to make the balloon strings look real. And the background there from our country scenes with a greeting from our new Inside Greetings birthday dies. And then I just colored the little party hats and gift to match my balloons. And then for this one, I went all red and white with it, one of my favorites. And I used all the elements, the hat, the bow, and the gifts. And then for the outside edge there, I combined both our scallop circle mats and our stitch circles together. And then for my greeting there, I used another one from the inside birthday greetings together with the banner basics. So for our next stamp set, we have a new little guide called Feeling Froggy. I Find You Ribboning, and it comes with a little cute dragonfly, two tiny little house flies, and then another greeting that says, I'm happy for you. Oh, and a little stitch line for like a little trail to go behind the dragonfly or the flies. And for this card, I used our Stitch Heart dies there again with the Country Scenes Pond and the little cattails that come with that. And then I cut and colored two of the frogs. And for the little scallop border there, I used the new Slimline Pin It dies. It comes with a couple bonus border dies. And for the hearts, I use those same little shape dies that I added glossy accents to, and that sentiment in the center was using our Froggy Friends stamps. For this card, I once again used our background using our country scene borders, and then the little lotus flower with the lily pad is also from Country Scenes. And then I paired it with the lily pad and lotus flower from our Feeling Froggy. They're a different size. And the little rings of water from that same Feeling Froggies. And then there's these little other smaller rings that I used from our Tropical Scene stamps. Those are the little dragonflies from the set, the little trails from Country Scenes, and then the I'm So Happy from You comes with the stamp set, and I kind of curved it to match the curve of my water pond. And then I used our classic gingham paper there along the edge. For this card, I used our background basic stamps to create a repeat polka dot pattern there. And then I combined it with the three frogs from our Froggy Friends stamps and a couple of the little house flies and dragonflies from the new set. This little rickrack border is from our rickrack borders. And for my greeting, I used the little cinnamon strip from the Slimline Pin It and a punny greeting from the Feeling Froggies. No, sorry, Froggy Friends. They both have the word froggy. So up next is a little set we featured last week on the blog called Snail Mail. It comes with a mailbox, a little love letter or letter. It comes with 3 little hearts, a little snail, and then a little phrase that says, you make me smile, or you make my heart smile. And again, another little stitch. Anytime I can fit one of those in, just because it's a dead space, I'll do that. So for this card, I used 2 of our new stitch circle dies together with the little cloud from our comic strip Speech Bubbles. And then for the little speech bubble hearts, I used the little hearts from the stamp set. And for my background, I created a custom background with our Rick Rack border dies. And my grass there is using our Slimline Nature border dies. For this card here, I just used the mailbox only from the set. Just same mailbox, but I combined it with our retiring polar bear, playful polar bears, and the sentiment from that. And then there's the stitched snow slope from our nature border dies and the outside frame from our fancy frame square dies. And for my background, I repeatedly stamped our background called Cascading Hearts, and then added a little scallop and stitch line from our Slimline basic borders. And the scallop was cut from some gingham pastel paper. So here's a closer look at all of our new circle dies that mix and match with each other. We have our stitch circles large and then our stitch circles small. And I'll show you here how they kind of nest together. So for all of these stitch circles, I know that there's a lot of stitch circles on the market. I just was tired of not having some to work with for our company, and with that in mind, knowing that there's a lot already on the market and that you probably own them, I really tried my best to focus on sizes that were rare, like on the 1/8 inch and the 3/8 inch, and kind of there's a variety. You'll see on the product page, it will give you all the sizes. There are some basic sizes kind of in between because they're all offset by 5/8 inches between the two sets. But anyway, I just wanted to share that they are some unique sizes that you may not already have. And they're also fairly reasonable in price. A lot of them retail for $14.99. So for this set, it includes 5 different dies, 4 of them scallop and then a little straight circle. And then this one has 4 with the scallop, and then this one has 3 scalloped with 1 circle in the center. So for the scallops, the largest one in particular, these were designed so you could layer them together, and the polka dot, you can have it on a busy card background and kind of have a solid piece of paper behind it so that it looks more finished. Because I included extra dies with the first scallop mat set that I'm showing you here, they didn't perfectly correlate in size for the smaller dies, but they do still layer together. They have the exact same number of scallops in a set, so you can layer them, and they'll just have like a little border around them. And these are this number 2 and number 3 sets are identical in size for these dies, so they will layer the same way. And these also will have just a slight little shadow border. And I wanted to share here, those smaller ones will also shadow each other. I wanted to share here that we have from all of the different sets like a stair step of polka dots, and for the most part these little dot or circle dies don't overlap with our staggered circles that we released prior. So with all of the sets you will have a bunch of different stitch circle sizes. And so for this card here, I used the smallest circle to create my polka dot background. And then I used those 2 scallop mats, number 1 and 2, and the stitch circle. These 2 cards use the scallop mat 1 set. And this one, I used 2 of the dies, one to create the outside edge and one to create the inside, so that it created sort of a ring or a frame. But this one I used those same 2 dies, but this time I used them stacked. So you can have 2 different looks. This one uses the largest one. I think it's over 4 inches. My card here I believe is 4.5 by 4.5. And for this one, it doesn't cut the frame normally. It cuts just, I layered the 2 there, the 1 and 3, but then I cut a frame out of the center using one of the stitch circles so that you could see through it and see all that background I worked so hard on with those layered eggs. But I used some vellum behind it so that the eggs still peeked out. And for this one, I used those stitch circles, offsetting them. And I believe this one used our, scallop circle mats, number 1. And then the circles, like I mentioned earlier, we're done with the staggered circle. And then this one uses our scallop mats, number 3. So you can fit 3 of those across in a card. This is a standard A2 size. And here we have our new Slimline Pin It dies that I keep referring to in this video. It comes with two separate little borders that match our previous releases, a skinny pennant and 3 others, so 4 pennants total. These borders go with our complement our previously released Frilly Frames Eyelet Lace and our Fancy Frame dies. So here's a look at that card that I missed showing you fully the other earlier in the video. And that's the slightly smaller pennant. So we have the largest one and the second to largest. And then this is the largest one as well that I just cut off at the top there. And then this one is the second to smallest, that one there, that I used together again with those fishtail banners for the little scallop. And I used the fishtail banner 2 for the fairy one. And then this one is the tiniest banner there. So these are just very versatile. I found myself using that skinny sentiment one for like everything. I can even use it to cut off the little banners. And I realized I never came back and showed you the actual country scene stamp set. So this is the pond scene there with the mountains. And then on the other side you have the little scene with the hills and the trees, and it comes with those little waves and grass and the little fly and the little trail, and then there's the lotus flower with lily pads and cattails. And for these dies they only cut the top of the scene for those 3 scenes, and then it will cut the full lily pad and cattails. So just a recap here, showing all the different ways you can color your mountains. I went with a bunch of different colors, and I'm realizing now I failed to pull out that tan one, but I actually colored my mountains in 3 different colors for slightly different looks. And then here's the pond, showing it in 3 different cards. I didn't get around to it, but I think the pond would look really cute with the fairies too. And then there's that mountain I missed. And then here is the different 2 different cards using that little hilly tree background there. Well, that wraps up our full look at our Spring 2021 collection. I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're able to have a little crafty happiness in your life with everything that's going on in our world. Thanks so much for watching.